For many years, Game Freak has been leaving evidence of a major overarching story involving AC, the ancient king of Kalos. A narrative that joins together different regions of the Pokémon world. And this plot, this story, isn't finished by any means. It is going to continue at least until the next generation, and maybe even beyond that. What am I talking about? Well, that AC was the king of Galar. Yeah, I know it's a bold statement to make, and I think it makes for really good clickbait, but bear with me, I can explain. A few years ago, in my first video, I explained my theory about how AC could be one of the twin heroes from Unova's past. And from the new information we got from Galar, I think I was correct, but I was missing a major piece of the puzzle. Cause it seems like AC isn't exactly from Kalos, he is Galarian. Today we will revisit that old theory of mine, making some sort of upgrade, adding what we learned from Sword and Shield to explain how Galar is relevant for the Kalos War, for the history of Unova and the future of the series. So let's get started talking about all we know about AC. 3,000 years ago, the Kalos region was being devastated by a war. AC, the king of the region, couldn't escape the violence of the conflict, being forced to send his beloved Pokémon Floette to the battlefield. And after a few years of fighting, the war took the little Pokémon's life. AC was destroyed. The loss of his friend was a breaking point for him, and with anger and sorrow he built a machine that would allow him to revive his missing Pokémon, but only by harvesting the life force of many others. AC wasn't satisfied with this. He was furious with those who hurt Floette, and modified the machine into a weapon and then used it, giving end to the war with a final destructive strike. After seeing these atrocities, Floette abandoned AC, who, now being immortal, walks the land as punishment and growing bigger and bigger as an effect of the weapon's power. Okay, nice story, but that isn't all we know about AC. In Auras we hear from Wallace and an old man from Sutopolis that he visited that city thousands of years ago. Zinnia also talks about him, and he is actually part of the myths of the Draconids. He was the one to dub Rayquaza the Delta Pokémon. That's all we learned during the normal course of the Gen 6 games, but there's some information that is missing here, because all of that doesn't explain who was the other side fighting in the war, why did it start in the first place, and how was AC able to build the weapon in ancient times. Being only accessible during and after the climax of the story, the Lysander Labs library is a place ignored by most people. The red, blue and purple shelves we find here hold little but really insightful information about who AC is and what happened during the times of the war. We learn that AC became the king of Kalos after introducing some never-seen-before technology to the region, and from a direct quote that every Pokémon's life had lost meaning for him, except his Floette's. In the purple shelves we find this. AC had a younger brother. It's said that he led a legion of greedy souls who wanted to seize the Kalos region. His dark intention was to make it his own, but when he saw how Kalos had been ravaged by the war, he took the weapon his brother had created and he buried the weapon deep underground. The king's younger brother told his progeny the location of the ultimate weapon and died. That is something to be used by sophisticated powers, not by humans. Human beings must create a world where such a weapon is unnecessary. Now we know AC had a younger brother who wanted to take his place. But who was this brother? What happened to his progeny, and what are those sophisticated powers he mentioned? Why does this story sound so familiar? During our adventures in Unova, we learn about two brothers who were extremely important for the past of the region. The most detailed information about them is what the lore keepers of the region, Iris and Raiden, tell us when we visit their house of Opelucid City. They mention how the Dark and Light Stones are actually the legendary Zekrom and Reshiram who have been sleeping in that state for a really long time, and that they used to be a single dragon who helped the twin heroes to create the new region of Unova. But the brothers had conflicting ideas about the control of the region, which led into the separation of the dragon in two, not counting Kurem, of course. Seeing that none of them was able to stand above the other, the brothers finished the conflict. But their sons continued the war after them, and destruction fell upon the Unova region again. After that, the legendary dragons disappeared. Just like in Kalos, we had two brothers fighting each other for the control of the region. In both cases, the war stops because the brothers realized that conflict was meaningless. In both, we have mentions of the king's descendants and how they knew about those things that became weapons of destruction during each one of the wars. And the stones in which the dragons are trapped were hidden from the public or placed in secluded locations, just like the ultimate weapon was hidden to avoid another war. The ultimate weapon was buried and Geosenge was built above it. Meanwhile, the stones were hidden at Dragon Spiral Tower and the Relic Castle, the one from this last place being have recently moved to the Nacrene Museum by Lenora. This palace was built in the Kalos region 300 years ago, which means it's pretty recent compared to the Kalos War, but we know it was built by AC's family. If you visit the palace after finishing the game and go to this big painting, its description will mention how the man in the portrait looks like AC. And in the gardens we find three intriguing statues. This one of a knight and his Pokemon. And I think this is supposed to be AC, and explaining why will help you to see the connections between him and the twin heroes. One of them is Palpitoad, introduced in Unova, the other two being Golurk and Eevee. Golurk's pre-evolution and Eevee can be found in Route 10, where the rocks AC used to absorb life force from Pokemon stand to this day. Golurk is AC's main Pokemon, as it is shown in the game's anime and manga. Golurk can be found at Dragon Spiral Tower, where one of the legendary dragons is asleep. Interestingly, the Pokédex entries for these Pokemon mention how they were made out of clay by ancient people who used ancient science to give them life, and they can also live for thousands of years, which could mean that AC's Golurk is the same one from the statue, he knowing about how to use advanced technology and the life force of Pokemon, which is infinity energy as explained in auras. This could mean he is actually linked to the origin of this species and how they were fashioned by ancient science. Other entries mention that they were made to be guardians of people, Pokemon and castles. They also seem to eternally follow the orders given by their creators, one of them apparently being lining up boulders, which we see at Route 10, really close to the ultimate weapon, and explains why they still protect Dragon Spiral Tower. They are trying to prevent people from getting to the legendary Pokemon, but AC renewed his Pokemon team in the last 3000 years, replacing Palpitoad and Eevee with Sigilyph and Torkoal. Torkoal was introduced in Hoenn, region AC visited, but also appears outside of the cave where Zygarde resides in Kalos. So besides of where he caught it, this Pokemon being on his team is most likely related to the longevity of turtles. Sigilif can be found in Kalos on Route 10, like Golett and Eevee. Meanwhile, in Unova you can find it in the area around Relic Castle. This Pokémon is also an ancient guardian, so it is possible that they were placed in those locations to prevent people from getting the legendary dragons and the ultimate weapon. Should I mention that until Sword and Shield this was one of the only 2 human statues in the franchise, the other one being at the Unova League. The other 2 statues are Reshiram and Zekrom, yeah, the 2 dragons from the Unovan Legends. And these are not artistic representations, these statues look exactly like the dragons. A level of detail we don't see anywhere else, not even in Unova, where depictions of the duo are not even close to reality. This means whoever made this had to have contact or met someone who had contact with the dragons, who at the time had been sleeping for thousands of years. Which means AC is the only possible candidate for the artist consultant. Not convinced? Well, remember AC had met the Draconets from the Hoenn region? During the Delta episode, Zinnia says this: "The actions that you are taking now, are they based on the ideals you cling to, or are they based on actual truths? And if they are, how much of the truth do you think you know?" Yeah, truth and ideals. Someone had to tell the Draconets about this. How do we know the twin heroes lived thousands of years ago? In-game, we learn that the Relic Castle is at least 2500 years old, which gives us a good time frame and places its construction close to the Kalos War. But if we want a more precise date, we should look into the biggest piece of evidence for this theory, the Abyssal Ruins. While exploring these ruins, we can see inscriptions on the walls. Well, we can translate them thanks to a series of documents that belonged to Ghetsis but are now on hands of our favorite sage, Cinzolin. From what we gather from the inscriptions of the wall, these ruins are not a castle, as many may think. They are a tomb, a memorial for a deceased king, similar to an Egyptian pyramid. Going deep into the ruins, we find some intriguing items, like all the available Arceus plates, except for 2 that we get from an NPC who got them from the ruins earlier. We also find relic gold, silver and copper, the relic base, the relic band, the relic statue, and most importantly, the relic crown, which looks a lot like the crown N wears during the intro of the games. The word relic already links these items with the castle, only if we knew how old they are. Well, they are 3000 years old, just like the Kalos War. Not to forget, the relic band could be the same kind of bracelet AC wears in the Ultimate Weapons cutscene, and the relic statue is a depiction of the Kalosian legendary Pokémon Diancie. This is confirmation that there is a relationship between Kalos and Unova, but these ruins also tell us who AC's younger brother was. The wall inscriptions tell us about this ancient king and his character, but there are some that seem to be a cautionary tale, telling us the dangers and harmful nature of war. This could be references to the Kalos War. The all is precious and the life is gratitude lines remind me of what AC said before building the ultimate weapon. What is wrong with bringing something you love back into this world? Without my beloved Pokémon, no other Pokémon have any meaning. As well as wars create tears, just reminds me of how AC's younger brother decided to abandon his pursuit for the throne of Kalos after seeing the destruction caused by the war. There are a few other texts on the walls, but we are here for the last few inscriptions of the ruins, where we can see 4 symbols that can't be translated. These symbols, when translated, become a series of dots, all of them equally as long as the other, except for the last one, which seems to be the king's name. But the dots corresponding to this symbol change depending on which language you are playing, and it always changes to the corresponding amount of letters Ghetsis' last name has in each language, indicating that the king's name is Harmonia. Ghetsis and N are descendants of the Unovan king, the king who apparently was AC's younger brother and tried to take over Kalos with his legion of greedy souls. And that sounds a lot like the Seven Sages and Ghetsis' plan to take over Unova. But to be sure, if Harmonia was the younger brother of AC, we need to know if he was the younger twin hero. Well, according to Drayden and Iris, Zekrom was the dragon who sided with the younger brother, and Zekrom was seeking a world of hope. And what do the ruins say about King Harmonia? King is hope for all. King never loses hope. So yeah, Harmonia was for sure the younger twin hero. This means Ghetsis is possibly related to him, and also to Lysander, who's said to be a descendant of the younger brother of the king. And we know Lysander is pretty tall. What about Ghetsis? He is one of the few characters with official heights, and his is pretty impressive. We could say the royal family had pretty tall genes before the ultimate weapon. And now that we mentioned Lysander, there's an interesting connection between the regions to make through him. Kalos is based after France, and his name comes from one of the most important symbols of French royalty, the fleur-de-lis. His Japanese name even is fleur-de-lis. This symbol also is influence for the design of the ultimate weapon and Serperior, but it is also relevant for the dragon-type gene leaders of Unova. Why? Well, the fleur-de-lis is a lily, but not really. French scholars point that the symbol is possibly inspired by iris flowers, so there's a confusion between the lily and iris flowers on this symbol. How does this affect Pokemon? Iris is one of the gym leaders, and her German name is Lyria, meaning lily. Drayden's Japanese name is Shaga, popular name of the Iris japonica. His Spanish name is Lirio, again lily, and in German it's Lysander. The Unovan Kalos link is now stronger. The fleur-de-lis has a legend around its origin. The king Clovis I, before a really important battle, picked up an iris flower from the ground and placed it on his helmet. Then he went on to win the battle. And this story just happens to be taken from a Roman legend around the first Christian Roman emperor, Constantine. Apparently, Constantine had a vision of a symbol and then drew it on his shield, the symbol being the Cairo, a Christian symbol that inspired Team Plasma's logo. Only that this one is missing the Alpha and Omega from the Cairo, the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. You know, the A and the C? So it makes sense cause Team Plasma is the Harmonia side of the family, not AC's. Oh, and just happens to be that Clovis I was the first king to unify France, just like AC, according to Lysander's research. The king's name was AC, and he was both the beginning and the end. He used technology unlike any seen during that era to unite Kalos for the first time. This line also is a reference to the Book of Revelations. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Let's do a quick recap. AC unifies Kalos using advanced, never-seen-before technology. At this point, him and his brother are most likely already in possession of the original dragon. They travel to new lands and create Unova. In this region, they built the Relic Castle, possibly as residence for Harmonia. AC probably already had a castle, and I think it could be the ruins we'd see at the Kalos Victory Road. Once established in Unova, the two power-hungry brothers fight, provoking the original dragon to split. The war gets out of control and Floet dies. AC builds the ultimate weapon and fires it at his brother's castle. What's the evidence for this? We know there's a destroyed city under the sand, and also when we talk with psychics at the ruins, they mention some kind of a special psychic energy. The same happens in Kalos Route 10, where psychics come to recharge their powers, and people mention energy coming out of the stones used to absorb life force out of Pokemon. The same energy is present in the Relic Passage, a tunnel that connects the castle with Drift Vale City and Castelia City. This tunnel could have easily been an escape route for the king once he saw the blast of the weapon going towards his palace. This blast of energy could be the reason why there's a desert in this area, where an ancient civilization thrived. We see the Guardian Darmanitans frozen, now made of rocks, which also happens in Route 10, where as seen in the cutscene, the sacrificed Pokemon fused into the rocks. Those Darmanitan are also now Psychic-type Pokemon, like the psychic energy found in the castle and around the ultimate weapon. The land became useless for agriculture as the impact caused dust and ashes to cover it. Volcarona lives in the castle, and apparently there's a place of worship dedicated to it, which must be because of what the Pokédex explains happened in a distant past, when volcanic ash covered the sun and Volcarona replaced it, saving the region. And this is funny because we mentioned that Team Plasma's logo is based after the Cairo, but the colors of the logo are taken from this mosaic of Roman Eastern Emperor Justinian, who would take the role of Ghetsis, and during his reign, a series of volcanic eruptions blocked the sunlight and caused what is known as the Late Antique Little Ice Age. And that's what I call a bitterly cold winter. After this, Harmonia goes to Kalos with his followers, wanting to take over, but seeing what his brother did, he ended the conflict. War brings tears. To avoid another war, he hid the weapon from humanity, burying it under Geosenge town. But the sons of the kings, with Zekrom and Reshiram, restarted the war. It is possible that this is when the Swords of Justice appeared, to protect the Pokemon reached by the destruction, as their in-game lore tells us. Or they could have acted at the time of AC's war. After all, they are based after French literature. Following what the ruins teaches about how Harmonia stopped a war, it is safe to assume that he stopped them and hid the dragons now transformed into stone in the tower and the depths of the now abandoned castle. Harmonia tells his sons about the location of the ultimate weapon and dies, which is why eventually Lysander is able to find it as a descendant of his family line. 3,000 years later, Ghetsis tries to use a similar scheme as the king used in Kalos and crowns N as the new king and hero, using the same crown as the ancient ruler of the region. We still need to answer some mysteries. How did AC know that the life force of Pokemon could be used as source of energy? How did he make this advanced technology? And why were there Arceus plates in his brother's tomb? Well, it is time to move now to Galar. We have a lot of things in Galar that can link the region to the heroes and AC, but I'm not just talking about how Zacian's crown is the relic crown, no. As we mentioned earlier, AC and Harmonia weren't actually Kaloshan nor Unovan. When looking into the history of the regions, we had confirmation of this. Kalos didn't exist as a region until AC appeared with his new technology and took over. And in Unova we see something similar, but where did they get that technology or the dragons? And where do we go that has events dating to 3,000 years ago? The most important stories about Galar are the ones regarding the Darkest Day and ETERNATUS. ETERNATUS is a dragon poison type Pokémon who is resting under the surface of the earth. According to its Pokédex entry, is actually an alien creature who arrived to the planet 20,000 years ago inside of a meteor. And if you look around the region and the wild area, we can see different signs of an impact. For example, the dusty ball, but especially for me, the rock wall behind Hammerlock, which seems to show indicators of being the place where the meteor hit the region. Though I think the whole wild area is a consequence of the meteor's strike, as it is located in its entirety on a geographical depression. But we are here for what happened after this. Sonia, who has been researching the history of Galar, mentions at Tarfield that the Darkest Day seemed to have happened around 3,000 years ago, an event in which a dark storm appeared over the region as well as giant Pokémon. She also explains that the statue at Motostoke seems to be the hero who faced the Darkest Day in that occasion. First, what has Eternatus to do with the Darkest Day? Well, everything. During the game we learned that Dynamax has its origins on Eternatus. Mr. Rose has awakened a Pokémon known as Eternatus. Apparently, the energy emitted from its body is what causes Dynamaxing. At this rate, all the Pokémon in Galar region will Dynamax and go berserk. With these words, Oleana basically explains that the events of the Darkest Day from 3,000 years ago were caused by Eternatus, and that the rays of energy from the underground come from this alien Pokémon. This energy is transmitted through what is known as Galar particles. Those events repeat in the present day, with the intention of preventing an energetic crisis. Thousands of years in advance, Chairman Rose woke up Eternatus to use the energy it emits to assure eternal prosperity for the region. Seems like energy pours down from the Darkest Day, from Eternamax Eternatus to the soil of the region, and that's how we get Pokémon becoming giants in unexpected places. In modern times, the Darkest Day is stopped by the player and Hop with the help of Sashan and Samacenta. What happened 3,000 years ago? Apparently the same. When we see the statue at Motostock, Sonia explains that this seems to be the single hero who defeated the Darkest Day, but later on we learn that this information is incorrect. The tapestries at the Hammerlock's boat tell the story of two heroes who defeated the Darkest Day with the help of the sword and shield. And we later get confirmation from the statues behind the mural from Stone's side, where we see two wolves with the kings of Galar. And later we learn that Shieldbert and Swordward are descendants of the ancient kings of Galar, and believe that the wolves' help wasn't actually needed to stop the Darkest Day. And what does all of this mean? Remember, Kalos and Unova were not established monarchies until Brothers appeared. Similar thing happened in Galar. As Sonia says, these tapestries tell the story of the creation of a kingdom in Galar. And these youths were the first monarchs of the region, and they were not kings until after beating the Darkest Day, which means that if these youths are AC and Harmonia, they were originally from Galar and then moved to Kalos and Unova. But this means they had to find a way to produce the advanced technology while they were in Galar. Not to mention, we would need more connections between the different sets of brothers. One of the most odd details about Eternatus is that it fell down to the earth 20,000 years ago. This puts its arrival around the same time of the oldest evidence of human culture in the Pokémon world. 20,000 years ago, ancient humans using clay made dolls, which later became the first clay dolls. But what makes this even more important is that another Dex entry states this: an ancient clay figurine that came to life as a Pokémon from exposure to a mysterious ray of light. I think Eternatus and the Galar particles might be related to this. After all, we know the power of Eternatus can bind time and space. This is what makes Dynamax Pokémon look giant. The Dynamax phenomenon is caused by a special power that originates from within Pokémon, warping the space around them, making them appear far larger than they truly are. Some Pokémon even change form upon Dynamaxing. This particular kind of Dynamaxing is known as Gigantamaxing. This is basically creating a wormhole, linking two separate and distant locations of the universe, and this actually happens while we battle Eternatus at Hammerlock. During the battle, we can see flashes of different landmarks of Galar appearing in the sky. Well, creating wormholes is one of the effects of infinity energy. While Mr. Stone confirms that the life force of Pokémon, like the ultimate weapon's power, is infinity energy, Professor Cosmo also adds that this energy can be used for many things, one of them creating wormholes. So the Eternatus energy could very well be infinity energy. Don't forget its Japanese name includes the word for infinity. Infinity energy is what gave life to Floet, so it could be what created the Claydolls, and this actually answers another mystery. Golurk also appears in this area, and just like Claydol, they were made from clay and then given life by a mysterious energy. Claydol, and by extension Baltoy, appear in some interesting places. They can be found between some other locations in Relic Castle and Skypillar, where the Draconets worship Rayquaza, Pokemon AC named. But you may ask, why are they important for the Galarian heroes? Well, because there are Claydol statues in front of the statues of the heroes and the wolves. The two youths watching a wishing star. A disaster occurs, the two bewildered youths. So the wishing star falls down before Eternatus woke up 3000 years ago. Wishing stars are actually little pieces of the poison dragon, and they carry the Dynamax energy, so we can assume that what woke up Eternatus was this wishing star. Maybe a lot of wishing stars fell down at the same time. Just think about it. Chairman Rose sent Bede on a search for wishing stars so he can give them to Eternatus, who not only wakes up but also overcharges itself with energy to the point of causing random Pokémon to Dynamax. And then the darkest day, like in the tapestry. The youths looking on at the sword and shield that stopped the disaster. Here we see the intervention of Zacian and Zamazenta, who helped the youths to defeat Eternatus. The youths being crowned. In the last of the 4 tapestries we see the coronation, where the kings were still accompanied by the wolves. Now we can be sure about how monarchy in Galar started, but there's one thing that will connect us to Kalos, and that's Unova. The 5th and missing tapestry, the one that can be found at Circhester. After seeing this missing part of the story, Sonia says, the heroes look sad, and where are the sword and shield? Perhaps when their duty was completed, they went into some kind of sleep. In this one, we see the kings paying respects to the wolves, who seem to have died. The place depicted on the tapestry is the slumbering world. The wolves had been asleep here for thousands of years, frozen in time as rocks. The same thing happened to the Pokémon from Route 10, and then the legendary dragons. Especially because I think they might have been frozen by the kings. How? First, we know whoever did it would need to know how to transform Pokémon into rocks. We know the kings are capable of this, as seen in Route 10 and with the dragons. Why would they need to do this? Well, Swordward and Shieldbert are the answer to this. They not only parallel the kings of old, with Swordward being the elder brother, just like Zacian is the elder sibling of the duo, and Shieldbert doesn't just look like Lysander, no. The Weirdo brothers seem to believe that Zacian and Zamazenta didn't play a major role, and that there was only one hero, their ancestor, fighting Eternatus. In Galar we clearly see that someone in the past rewrote history to follow their agenda. That's not only something the new twins accused Sonia of doing, introducing the possibility to the audience. We know this happened. If not, why was there only one hero represented at Motostoke? Because one of them tried to hide what happened, tried to make his brother disappear, like a Romulus and Remus scenario, the Roman twins who are used as origin for the wolves. How did he do this? Fusing the two into a single hero, erasing the wolves, building a wall in front of the statues so people wouldn't know about them. And this also happened in Unova and Kalos. In Unova we know about the twin heroes, but we only hear about the younger brother, the brother from the Abyssal Ruins. The other king didn't get a monument, possibly because he isn't exactly dead. And in Kalos, AC's brother hid the weapon from everyone but his family. The war still is a well-known fact, but nobody knows about how AC got the energy, neither about why the war started. Harmonia, knowing he had to not only hide the weapon, he had to make the knowledge the civilization had gained about infinity energy, the technology that allowed them to build the two regions, all of that dissolve from the minds of their followers. And here is where Berserk mode comes in. The post-game twins, while trying to get their family back into the throne, mention they want to show the legendaries' real nature. After gathering wishing stars, they use them to bombard one of the wolves with Galar particles. But the legendaries don't Dynamax as you would expect. They go berserk. They lose control of their powers and attack people indiscriminately. This also happens with Mega Evolution. Lots of Pokédex entries for Mega Evolutions mention how the rush of energy the Pokémon are receiving makes them act in violent ways. Seems like the wolves went berserk and the kings had no option but to petrify them and leave them at the slumbering world, making the place a forbidden forest. And we already explained how the power of Eternatus is infinity energy, but Professor Cosmo also mentioned that the infinity energy they use is basically the same as the energy of Mega Evolution. Why would this be important? Sycamore mentions that Mega Rings work in a similar way to the unstarred sundial. He not only exposes that there's a connection between those things, he also mentions that the sundial is more than 3000 years old. Sycamore also suggests that Megastones are modified evolutionary stones. If you see how the sundial interacts with Megastones, making them appear to the player through some underground connection, it's pretty similar to how daily in Galar we get new evolutionary stones coming out of the ground through menhirs, and the menhirs from Route 10 do the same. The menhirs in Galar drain energy from the underground, creating evolutionary stones. The ones from Kalos drain the life force of Pokémon, which is the same as infinity energy, which is the same as the Galar particles, which is the same as Mega Evolution, and having to consideration that Professor Sycamore's teacher Rowan said that the evolutionary energy of Pokémon could be used as energy, we could assume that those menhirs are basically Everstones, absorbing the evolutionary life force of Pokémon. How fitting, you get an Everstone in Geosenge from a scientist. 20,000 years ago, Eternatus fell down to the earth, and 3,000 years ago some pieces of the Pokémon did the same. One of those pieces possibly fell down in Kalos, while another woke up the giant Pokémon. Two brothers joined forces with Zacian and Zamazenta to fight the Darkest Day. They were victorious and became kings. But after that, the wolves received a lot of Dynamax energy and went berserk, forcing the kings to petrify them. The brothers then used the energy from Dynamax to create new technology, which they used to expand their kingdom to Kalos and Unova. But a war started between them, which led the older brother to create the ultimate weapon. After this, the war ended, and the younger brother hid every evidence of this energy that allowed them to create an empire, but led into the death of thousands of Pokémon and people. we still don't know which region Sashan and Samacenta are originally from. Maybe from the same region as Melmetal, another Pokémon that is 3000 years old, the Mysterious, etc. region. I'd say we'll have something to wait for, not only in the next Sinnoh games, but also in future generations. And until then, we'll be waiting.